Story 1. The Labyrinth of Dreams. Laura was a dedicated psychologist known for her ability to help patients deal with trauma and sleep disorders. In a small town where everyone knew each other, she became an essential support for those facing emotional problems. However, recently something strange started happening. Several people in the town began reporting recurring and disturbing nightmares, all with a common theme: an endless labyrinth and a shadowy figure chasing them. One of her younger patients, Daniel, a 14-year-old boy, was one of the first to report these nightmares. Daniel was a shy teenager with a normal life until the nightmares began to disturb him. "Laura, I keep dreaming about this labyrinth," Daniel said during a session. "I run and run, but I never get out. And there's always this shadowy figure behind me. I wake up sweating and scared to sleep again." Laura listened attentively, taking notes. "Daniel, let's try to understand more about these nightmares. Maybe there's something in your life that's causing this fear." He started investigating, first focusing on Daniel's personal issues. However, she soon realized that other patients were also having similar dreams. Each of them described the same labyrinth and the same shadowy figure. Laura began to see it wasn't a coincidence. There's something more going on here. Laura thought, "I need to find out what's causing these nightmares in so many people." She decided to talk to other professionals in the town and the patient's family. During her conversations, she discovered that the nightmares had started almost simultaneously for everyone, and each account seemed more frightening than the last. Some patients were so disturbed that they avoided sleeping, fearing to encounter the shadowy figure again. Determined to help her patients, Laura decided she needed to enter the labyrinth of dreams. She knew lucid dreaming techniques and thought she could use them to investigate the mystery from within the nightmares. She trained for several nights, practicing the methods to stay conscious within dreams. "I'm going to enter the labyrinth and try to find this shadowy figure," Laura said to herself. "Maybe I can discover what's causing these nightmares." One night, after an especially disturbing session with Daniel, Laura was ready. She drank a relaxing tea, set her phone alarm for a brief period, and lay down, focusing on the image of the labyrinth that Daniel and other patients had described. Soon, Laura found herself in a dark, winding corridor with high, enclosed walls around her. She was inside the labyrinth. She looked around, trying to orient herself, but everything seemed the same: endless corridors and oppressive darkness. She felt a presence behind her and knew the shadowy figure was close. Walking carefully, Laura began to explore the labyrinth. At every corner, she felt the presence stronger, as if she were being watched from all angles. Finally, turning a corner, she saw the shadowy figure in the distance. It was tall and indistinct, wrapped in shadows that seemed to absorb the light around it. "Who are you?" Laura shouted, trying not to show fear. "Why are you chasing these people?" The figure didn't respond, but began to move towards her. Laura felt a chill, but stood firm. She decided to confront the figure, hoping she could get some answer or clue. When the figure was a few feet away, it stopped. Its eyes, or what seemed like eyes, glowed with an intense red light. "You do not belong here," said a deep, echoing voice that seemed to come from all sides. "This is my domain, and I feed on fear." Laura understood that she was dealing with a powerful and malevolent entity, a trapped spirit feeding on people's nightmares. She needed to find a way to free the spirit and break the cycle of nightmares tormenting her patients. "How can I help you find peace?" Laura asked, trying to show compassion. "If you release these people, maybe I can help you." The figure hesitated for a moment, seeming to ponder. "Long ago, I was betrayed and trapped in this labyrinth by my own fears. To free me, you must face and overcome your own fears within this place." Laura knew it wouldn't be easy, but she was determined to try. She began walking through the labyrinth, confronting her deepest memories and fears: the loss of loved ones, personal failures, and the feeling of helplessness when she couldn't help her patients. Each time she faced a fear, the labyrinth changed, becoming a bit clearer and less oppressive. As Laura faced her fears, Daniel and the other patients also began to notice changes in their nightmares. The shadowy figure was less present, and the labyrinth seemed less intimidating. They felt something was changing, though they didn't know exactly what it was. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Laura found the center of the labyrinth. There, she saw the shadowy figure, but this time it seemed less threatening and more human. The red eyes still glowed, but with less intensity. "You did it," said the figure, the voice now softer. "You faced your fears and helped weaken the darkness that trapped me." Laura felt a wave of relief and compassion. "Can you rest now?" she asked. Figure nodded. "Yes, and with my release, the nightmares of the others will also cease. Thank you." With those words, the figure disappeared, and the labyrinth began to crumble around Laura. She felt herself pulled back to consciousness, waking in her bed with a start. She was exhausted, but knew she had achieved something important. In the following days, Laura's patients reported that their nightmares had stopped. Daniel returned to sleeping peacefully, without fear of the labyrinth or the shadowy figure. Laura felt relieved and satisfied for having helped her patients in such a profound way. The story of the labyrinth of dreams and the shadowy figure became a local legend, a reminder that facing our fears is the key to freedom and peace. Laura continued her work as a psychologist, now with a new understanding of the mysteries of the mind and the power of dreams. Story 2. The House of Nightmares. Mark was a paranormal investigator with a well-established reputation. He had a special ability to uncover the truth behind supernatural events and helped those terrified by forces they couldn't understand. Recently, he received a letter from Anna, a horror writer, describing a series of disturbing nightmares since she moved into an old mansion on the outskirts of the city. Anna had moved into the mansion hoping to find inspiration for her new book. The house, known as Holloway Mansion, had a sinister history. Built in the late 19th century, it had been inhabited by several families, all of whom reported strange phenomena and terrifying nightmares. It was said to be haunted, and many believed something terrible had happened there. Mark decided to take the case and traveled to the mansion, where he was greeted by Anna, a woman in her 30s with tired eyes and a relieved expression upon seeing him. "Mark, I'm so glad you came," Anna said, leading him inside the house. "Since I moved here, I've been having terrible nightmares. Vivid dreams that leave me terrified and unwilling to sleep." Mark nodded, listening attentively. "Tell me more about these nightmares. Do they have any pattern or common theme?" Anna sighed, sitting on the living room couch. "Yes. All the nightmares involve a malevolent presence in the house. Sometimes it's a shadow watching me from the corner of the room. Other times I feel like I'm being chased by something invisible. And there's always a deep sense of fear, as if something is trying to take over me." Mark took notes, interested in the details. "And these nightmares started as soon as you moved here?" "Yes," Anna confirmed. "On the first night, I had a dream where a shadowy figure watched me from the bedroom door. From there, the nightmares only got worse." Mark decided to explore the mansion. The house was imposing, with long dark corridors, spacious rooms, and old decor that added to the oppressive feeling of the environment. As he walked through the corridors, he felt a heavy energy, as if the house were alive and watching every move. "We need to investigate the house's history more deeply," Mark said. "Let's look through local archives and talk to former residents if possible." In the following days, Mark and Anna visited the local library, where they found old newspapers and records about Holloway Mansion. They discovered that the house had been the site of several tragic events. One of the first owners, a man named Henry Holloway, had been a practitioner of dark rituals. He performed occult ceremonies in the mansion, believing he could gain supernatural powers. Legends said he ended up sealing a pact with a malevolent entity that became trapped in the house after his death. "This explains a lot," Mark said, closing an old newspaper describing the events. Henry Holloway really made a pact with an entity, could be causing the nightmares and supernatural phenomena. Anna was visibly scared. "What can we do to stop this?" Mark knew the situation was dangerous, but was determined to help. "We need to learn more about these rituals and find a way to banish the entity from the house. Let's keep investigating." They found old diaries from previous mansion residents, all describing similar nightmares and frightening experiences. Some spoke of seeing Henry Holloway's figure wandering the corridors, while others mentioned feeling watched and chased by something invisible. Finally, they found a diary that seemed to belong to Henry Holloway himself. The last pages were filled with disturbing inscriptions and drawings of occult symbols. There were detailed descriptions of the rituals he performed, including one that seemed responsible for sealing the pact with the entity. "This is the ritual," Mark said, showing the diary to Anna. "If we can reverse this, we can banish the entity and end the nightmares." Mark and Anna spent hours studying the ritual, trying to understand every step. They decided to perform the ritual in the same room where Henry Holloway used to practice his dark rituals, a hidden room in the mansion's basement. The room was filled with old symbols and candles, just as described in the diary. When everything was ready, Mark and Anna began the ritual. They lit the candles and recited the words from the diary, carefully following each step. As they progressed, the temperature in the room dropped drastically, and an oppressive presence began to manifest. Suddenly, the candles were blown out by a gust of wind, and a shadowy figure appeared in the center of the room. It was Henry Holloway, or at least what was left of him. His eyes glowed with a red light, and he seemed trapped between the worlds of the living and the dead. "You shouldn't be here," said the figure, his voice echoing through the room. "This is my house, and no one will take it from me." Mark stayed calm, holding the diary firmly. "We're here to end your curse. You've caused enough pain and suffering." The figure laughed. "Cold and disturbing sound. You have no power over me. This entity is my ally, and together we are invincible." Anna, trembling with fear, continued reciting the ritual's words. The entity began to agitate, as if being forced to retreat. Henry Holloway screamed in rage but couldn't stop the ritual's progress. With a final effort, Mark and Anna completed the ritual, reciting the final words with all the willpower they could muster. The entity let out a deafening scream and began to fade, taking with it the figure of Henry Holloway. When silence finally fell over the room, Mark and Anna were exhausted but relieved. They felt the oppressive presence had vanished, and the mansion's energy seemed lighter. "We did it," Mark said, panting. "The entity is banished." Anna hugged Mark, tears of relief streaming down her face. "Thank you, Mark. Couldn't have done this without you." In the following days, Anna realized her nightmares had ceased. The house, once filled with fear and oppression, now felt like a more peaceful and welcoming place. She decided to continue living in the mansion, feeling inspired to write about her experience and the horrors she had faced. Mark returned to his life as a paranormal investigator, but the story of Holloway Mansion and the dark pact they had banished became a legend among the local. The mansion, once avoided by all, became a symbol of victory over evil and the courage to face the unknown. Story 3. The Nightmare Demon. Richard was a detective known for his skeptical and logical approach to solving mysterious cases. To him, every mystery had a rational explanation, and he prided himself on his ability to uncover the most hidden secrets. However, his next case would challenge all his beliefs. In a large city, several people began reporting terrifying nightmares that seemed dangerously real. Worse yet, these nightmares were resulting in mysterious deaths during sleep. Richard was called in to investigate these unusual deaths. The victims, seemingly healthy, died of inexplicable causes during sleep. The only connection between them was the terrible nightmares they had been reporting shortly before their death. During the investigation, Richard met Sophie, an expert in lucid dreams. She had been called by some of the victims' families, who believed she could offer a different perspective on the deadly nightmare. "Sophie, I need your help to understand these nightmares," Richard said, showing her the case reports. "I don't believe in supernatural things, but there's something strange going on here." Sophie examined the reports, her brows furrowed in concentration. "These nightmares are more than just bad dreams. They have a frightening consistency. It's almost as if there's an evil presence connecting all these victims." Richard hesitated, but his curiosity and the need to solve the case led him to consider the possibility of something beyond the natural. "What do you suggest?" "We need to enter the victim's dreams," Sophie said firmly. "We can use lucid dreaming techniques to enter the nightmares and try to understand what's happening. Maybe we can find a way to stop this." Although skeptical, Richard agreed. They began working together, studying the victim's sleep patterns and reports. Sophie taught Richard the techniques of lucid dreaming, a skill that allowed the dreamer to control and be aware within their own dreams. After days of preparation, Richard and Sophie decided to try the technique. They chose a quiet night, prepared the environment carefully, and entered a deep state of relaxation. Soon, they found themselves inside the dream of one of the most recent victims. The nightmare was a place of shadows and fear, with endless corridors and doors leading to even more frightening places. Richard felt a chill down his spine as he realized everything seemed terribly real. "Sophie, do you see this?" he asked, trying to stay calm. "Yes," Sophie replied, her voice steady. "We're in the nightmare. We need to find the source of this." They began exploring the nightmare, encountering various spectral figures that seemed to reflect the victim's deepest fears. However, the most disturbing presence was a shadowy and threatening figure that seemed to follow their every move. "This must be the nightmare demon," Sophie said, pointing to the figure. "It's causing all this terror." The shadowy figure had glowing red eyes and a palpable aura of malice. Richard felt his heart race, but knew he needed to keep his cool. "We need to confront it," Richard said determinedly. "How can we stop it?" "First, we need to understand its weaknesses," Sophie replied. "Nightmare demons feed on fear. If we can control our fears and face the entity directly, we can weaken it." With renewed courage, Richard and Sophie advanced towards the shadowy figure. The malevolent presence intensified, and the nightmare demon began to manifest in more aggressive ways, trying to scare them with horrific visions and distortions of reality. "You cannot defeat me," the demon growled, voice echoing through the nightmare. "I am fear personified and you are just weak mortals." Richard felt the weight of the demon's words, but knew he couldn't give in to fear. "We're not here to run away," said firmly. "We're here to end you." Sophie, beside Richard, began reciting an ancient incantation she had learned in her studies of lucid dreams. The words had a tangible effect, making the demon retreat a bit. Richard joined her, reciting the incantation with the same determination. The nightmare demon roared in anger and pain, its form beginning to unravel. "This is not possible," it screamed. "You do not have the power to destroy me." "We're not alone," Sophie replied. "We have the strength of those you tormented. Your fears no longer have power over us." With a final effort, Richard and Sophie recited the incantation's final word. The demon's shadowy figure began to dissolve, disappearing into nothingness. The nightmare around them began to crumble, and they felt themselves pulled back, consciousness. They woke up panting but relieved. They felt the weight of the nightmares had been lifted. In the following days, inexplicable deaths stopped, and those who were still alive and had nightmares reported that the disturbing visions had ceased. Richard and Sophie knew they had faced something beyond human comprehension, but they also knew they had triumphed. The nightmare demon was defeated, and the city was safe again. That was incredible, Richard said, still trying to process what had happened. "I never thought I'd see something like that." Sophie smiled, satisfied. "Nightmares are more powerful than we think, but with courage and determination, we can overcome them. It was a pleasure working with you, Richard." "And the same goes for me, Sophie," Richard replied. "I hope we can collaborate again in the future." With this experience, Richard gained a new perspective on the world of the unknown. He continued his work as a detective, but now with a more open mind to the supernatural, and a renewed respect for the mysteries hidden in the recesses of the human mind.